Hello, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to request time off in the Workday application. In this video, you will learn how to request time off, how to know whether your request has been addressed, how to correct or delete a time off request previously made, and how to review your time off activity. We will start from the All About Me page. Your page may look different from this one depending on your work function. That is to say, you may have a different number of these worklets, each of these being called a worklet in Workday speak. But the worklet of interest in this video is the time off worklet, and yours will look exactly like this, regardless of how many other worklets you might have. Clicking on this worklet, I see that I have a window that's called the time off window. It's divided into three conspicuous components, the first one being the request area, where I will request time off or request a time off correction. And then there's a view area where I can see the kind of activities that have already occurred in my requests for time off previously. Again, even inside this window, the number of options you have will be different depending on your job function, but you will certainly see the identical icons that we're going to discuss today. The most important one, of course, is requesting your time off. This page shows all the information you need to manage your time off. You can see the balance as of today's date that you have available to you as of this point in time. You can see the balance per plan. In my case, I only have one PTO plan, and so that one is listed here, but if I had multiple plans, they would all be listed. Also, I can see company holidays. Here we see that we'll be getting Christmas Eve off and Christmas Day, as well as New Year's Day. And I can also see time off that was already requested and the status of that request. Also, you can drill down into the request for further details. This little I you'll see in various places in Workday, and it's very helpful. Here I see some details about the time entry, which has already been successfully completed, and by the way, that means my supervisor has approved it. I can see the date for the PTO, that it is PTO as opposed to something like jury duty or bereavement, and how many hours were requested on that day, what day I initiated the request, and finally the time off event. As you will see, there's different types of events. If I had put a comment in here, which I wish I would have, then I would know what this time off was about. That can be useful both in looking forward and in looking in arrears. I'll explain more about that in a few minutes. For now, let's just close this, and let's talk about how we would go about requesting time off. It's really just as easy as clicking the first day you plan to be away. In this case, it turns out that Stanford will be going to the Rose Bowl this year, and therefore I would like to go down and tailgate in advance of the Rose Bowl, which is held on New Year's Day. So I'm going to click on December 31st, and I'll see that something immediately happens. You might not have noticed it, but up here, suddenly this button came alive, and it's telling me that I've selected 1 days. The reason it's telling me I've selected 1 days is because I could actually select multiple days, and they don't even have to be contiguous. I really just want 1 day, so I'm going to cancel this selection, and now I'm back down to 1 day being selected. Of course, I haven't indicated how many hours on that day I want to have for PTO, and I'll do that now. In order to do it, since I picked the 1 day, I'm just going to go ahead and click Request Time Off. When I click Request Time Off, I get a whole new window, and here I'm going to pick what type of time off I want. As I said, I have various options. In this case, I want PTO, but if any of these others applied, then I could take those instead. Incidentally, did you know that you don't actually have to take your hands off the keyboard for everything you do in Workday? Sometimes you can just type in the item that you want, or even just a fraction of it, as long as Workday can guess at what you mean And it's going to figure out that if I put in PT and I just hit the tab key, PTO is the only one that looked like one of the available options, and so it picked it for me. Did you also notice there's a star beside two of these text boxes? That simply means that we are required to enter that information before we'll be allowed to submit this form. Now in this case, as I said, I want 8 hours. I want to take the whole day. And this time I'm going to be smart and put a comment so that when I come back later, I'll know what this was about. And it's going to be down to Pasadena for tailgating with friends. Good. I'm ready. I'm ready to now submit this. Now here's another comment area. It's not required because there's no star beside it, but this is what my supervisor is going to see. I want to encourage my supervisor to allow the time off that I really want. So I'll just put in a note there that will encourage him to approve this time off request. I'm going to submit it, and look what happened. I now see that there's a PTO in progress. Notice how that's different than PTO successfully completed. It's considered to be in progress because my supervisor has not yet acted on my time off request. As soon as I hit the submit button, there was actually a process that caused a notification to be sent to him via email, as well as in his Workday inbox. And he'll be able to see my request and then make a determination on whether or not to approve it. Did you notice that I already had a day off approved for January 2nd? And I'm wondering, do you suppose the PTO request I made here will have an impact on the PTO previously requested? Well, indeed it will. I might have just driven this to negative PTO hours. That is, I might not have had 8 hours available here after requesting 8 hours here. As a matter of fact, looking at my balance as of 12:15, I certainly didn't have another 8 hours available then. Let's see if I have enough time when I'm actually going to take that time off request. So if I move this calendar to that day, I see that I still had 5.86 hours after considering this time off request. It looks to me like that's probably going to drive this negative. Let's just take a look. We'll go to January 2. And sure enough, I see that I've actually got a negative 2.14 hour time off balance at this time. Turns out that my PTO plan allows me to go negative, and so Workday allowed me to drive it negative here in this circumstance. Had the plan not allowed me to go negative or overuse my PTO hours ahead of time, then I would have received a warning and it would not have allowed me to do this. Well, what if I decided I really didn't want my time off after all? What if I made a mistake? I could easily come back here and let's say I want to remove this time off request. Well, the way that I can go about doing that is to simply go to my process status and cancel the request. Because my supervisor has not yet approved it, my activity to cancel this will be a little bit different than this case where he actually has already approved it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the All About Me page, and I'm going to go to, I'll go to my process status, and I see that I have a time off request in progress and I can cancel it. This is how you can cancel a time off request between the time you request it and your supervisor approves it. I'll go ahead and cancel that time off for the sake of this demonstration. And note that the only thing I need now is a comment. Sorry, I don't actually have tickets yet. Oh dear. And so I'll submit that and I'll close. Now if I go back to my time off, I'll see that that one is no longer here. As I said, very easy to eliminate a time off request that hasn't yet been approved. If it has been approved, that's when it gets a little bit harder, but just a little bit. Going back to the All About Me, and I'll go to the time off icon, and I'm going to do a time off correction. Here is the one that's already been approved, and I could simply say, let's just suppose I only wanted 4 hours. By the way, if I wanted 0 hours, if I wanted to eliminate the entry altogether, in other words, I could simply put in 0 hours, put in a comment, and then submit it. Now it might be that I only want to take 4 hours instead of 8, and so I could do that instead. I'm not actually going to do it here, but you get the idea. You can always cancel out of a page after you've made changes that you don't want to keep simply by hitting cancel. Workday gives me a break here in case I accidentally hit cancel. It's asking me to confirm. And what do I want to do? I really want to discard changes and have canceled out of this entirely. So now we know how to enter time off requests and how to correct them. Let's see how we can review our time off activity. An easy way to review your time off activity is to simply click the View Time Off hot link. Here I see the activity along with comments. It's always a good idea to have comments, and this is one good indication of a place that's helpful. You can see the meaning of each of these time off requests, and that can help you when you're coming back later and looking at things. Now there's also a nice little tool here on this tab in which you can find out what is the total of each of these categories with respect to your PTO. And basically a synopsis of your time off activity. Let's go back to All About Me, and I'll show you one more thing. When I go to time off balance, I get a little calendar, and with this calendar I can go into the future and to determine, given all the time off requests that I've already submitted that have been approved or not, how much balance is available to me as of any particular date and time. For instance, if I was interested in seeing, well, how much time do I have mid-February with President's Day weekend coming up, I can click on and then hit OK. It's calculating for me real time, and it's telling me all of this information. This is a carryover balance from the previous year. This is how much was accrued year to date, what the beginning period balance was, meaning the beginning of the payroll period, which is right here, February 10th through the 23rd of February. And most importantly, what is the ending period balance? So I see I've got nearly 20 hours of available PTO for President's Day weekend. I find this to be a very useful little tool. Well, this concludes our time off request process. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And in this video, you should have learned how to request time off, how to know whether your request has been addressed, how to correct or delete a time off request previously made, and how to review your time off activity. If you are a supervisor, or just want to see how this looks from her point of view, please see the next video, Time Off Management for Supervisors. Thank you.